You're listening to The Artist Athlete, show number 8, mein Herr. Hey friends, fans, and enemies. I'm Shannon McKenna, and I'm the host of the Artist Athlete podcast. This podcast is dedicated to circus. It's a resource for those working in the industry to share our stories, viewpoints, and information, and a place for outsiders to get a sneak peek into our world. Today's guest is the amazing Philipp Tigris. And before I read Philipp's bio, I feel like you need to really get a visual on the man we're talking to today. So, if you're driving down 285 or you're on 80 waiting to cross the bridge or you're on the Autobahn, do yourself a favor. Pull over, open up Instagram, and look for Philipp Tigris. That's PHILIPP.TIGRIS. Yeah. Right? I love being able to share Philipp's story with you all because he shatters all preconceived traditional notions about being a contortionist. And that's what's built him his career. Philipp was born in 1974, and he started his flexibility training alone in his room at the age of 7. He is now considered one of the best male contortionists in Europe. He appears on variety stages across Germany, including the Roncalli Apollo in Dusseldorf, Crystal Palast in Leipzig, and the Chameleon in Berlin. He toured for 8 years with the duo trapeze act and developed acts with hula hoops and aerial hoop. At the time of this recording, he's currently on tour with Limbo the Show in the Netherlands. Here's my interview with Philipp Tigris. Philipp Tigris.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you say, in your own words, what you do?
Who I am and what I do? Okay. I'm a male contortionist and hula hoop performer living in Berlin. I was born in Berlin and I all learned here in Berlin. I'm totally self-taught and started when I was 7 years old.
You started when you were 7 years old?
Yes.
How did you start when you were 7 years old?
The first thing I remember was my grandma dragging me to a circus show somewhere, and I loved it so much that I decided I want to join the circus, basically for the animals. I loved the animal trainer, and of course my parents didn't buy me some practice elephant or anything else, so acrobatics was the thing to go with.
Yeah.
And I come from a doctor's family. They were not too thrilled about the son wanting to be an acrobat.
Yeah.
So I had actually to learn all by myself. I had no children's circus, or it was obvious from the very beginning I will not go to the circus school because my parents would not allow that. So that's why I ended up basically with contortion, because it's the only thing you can practice in your room. It doesn't need much space. It's not that dangerous when you start it, and
especially if you're 7.
You don't need props. Yeah, exactly. As a small kid, you learn it easily, and it's not fun actually. When I started, I didn't like it so much. It started to be fun when the first things worked. So when the first time was, for instance, that I felt my foot touching my head, then I noticed, oh look, that's going somewhere. Now it's becoming fun.
How did you even at 7 years old start to train that though? Would you stretch your oversplits on your bed, or how did you?
Splits came very late to me, I must say. Yeah, it was basically first all about the back. I practiced my back, and apparently I have some kind of lower back flexibility naturally.
Okay.
Not the best one, but something you could work with. And in school, in my class, there I had a friend. She could do splits and a bridge, a basic bridge. So this is basically my role model in the first class in school. So I looked, okay, what's she doing? I try that too, and that's what got me started.
That's adorable.
A little desperate as well, right?
Yeah, I think so. But the conviction of a 7-year-old, because extreme flexibility is not fun, right?
No, it's true.
Putting your butt on your head over and over again, and then to be 10 years old and appreciate the torture of that.
It's true, but it became more torture the older I got. I must say, I didn't need to warm up so long as I had to later on. when I started as a 7-year-old, you just do it. You don't think about it. You don't warm up. You just try. Where the hell is my foot? And just put it on my head. And somehow it works. Or it doesn't. But
did you have any coaching for like hand balancing or anything like that?
No, not at all.
Wow.
I joined a gymnastics group later in school. We had a gymnastics team in our school. But literally, I was the only boy interested in gymnastics in my school. So there was no coach for the boys. We had just a coach for the girls. And sometimes I could join the girls' team, but most of the time I was just by myself. And yeah, I did basically everything by myself.
Aww.
I know.
Little Philip,
it's terrible.
That's so tragic.
My life's a disaster.
Did they train you? Like, I'm trying to think, like, because male gymnastics has totally different elements as well. They have rings, they have pommels, they have all of that. So did you just do women's floor and
I shared the elements that were the same with the guys. So I did a floor and I did the jumps. And whenever it came to the apparatus of the men, I was just on my own. That's why I didn't get so far there, because I was too scared to get the really good things on a high bar or stuff. So basically that's why my skills are really limited on floor stuff. I was once quite a good tumbler, so tumbling was fun. I enjoyed that. But very early I noticed that I had to make a decision between tumbling or contortion. Both together didn't go too well. I noticed when I was maybe 16, 17 that I started to get back problems from all the tumbling. So I decided, I think my last backflip I did when I was 20. Yeah.
And then you were like, no more.
No more jumping. Nope.
I shan't do it.
Exactly.
I shall only bend.
Exactly.
I will not break.
Exactly.
And when was your first time on stage?
I noticed in my diary, I have a little note when I was 11 that I performed for the very first time contortion. Oh. It was for family back home, but at least I did a little performance. Yeah. And then later on, I did some school performances, and the first paid thing I think I did when I was 16 in a small circus that just came to the city.
That's amazing. And what did your parents think at 16 when you were getting paid?
My mom was quite fine during all the time with me because she used to be a gymnast as well. When she was young, she did gymnastics, so she had quite a touch on what I did. But my father, for him, this is a world he has nothing to do with and he can't really deal with. And he looks at it really from the doctor's side. So he was like, oh God, that can't be healthy. It doesn't look even healthy. He actually really forbid me to do this. And I did it just in my room behind his back. Did it anyway. Was my rebellious face. Yeah, exactly.
Putting my butt on my head while the other kids were smoking and drinking.
I mean, my father is an orthopedist.
Oh, wow.
And my mom is a physiotherapist. So it must be also a little bit of teenage rebellion when the son becomes a contortionist.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And they saw me the first time performing when I was 22. I had a contract here in Berlin in a variety called Chameleon. It was my very, very first proper long-term contract. And that was the first time that they saw me perform. And I think from this moment on, it was kind of okay because they saw I earn money that I can live on. And they saw I'm happy with what I'm doing. And I don't embarrass myself too much on stage.
Not too much.
Not too much.
That's
not too
good.
much.
What is the process for an artist, an independent artist who's completely self-taught to get into the variety scene?
I was lucky. I came to this business when there was this kind of a revival of the variety culture in Germany. There was once already a big variety scene in Berlin around the 1920s.
Yeah, I always think of the musical Cabaret.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what everybody has in mind. And it basically was exactly like that. Berlin was filled with cabarets like that. So you had lots of small and big ones. And later on, when the movie theaters came up, all those little theaters, they died because people just went to see movies. It was more exciting. Nobody was interested in cabarets and varieties anymore. And so they vanished for a certain time. And in the 90s, early 90s, they got a revival in Berlin. And I was just lucky to be at this time here in the city and starting what I did, because I felt like, okay, around me, many places opened up that were interested in shows that I could be part of. And was just a lucky situation. Once I had the foot on one stage, they usually asked me, that was cool, could you perform here too?
Yeah, nice.
Once the stone got rolling, there was no stopping anymore.
Very cool. And I mean, you have such a unique act because you're a male contortionist also.
That's the other point. I was back in that time the only male contortionist that we had here in Germany. And later on, when I started doing hula hoop as a discipline on stage, I was the only male hula hooper in Germany. So that helped a lot to get noticed and to get jobs.
Did you ever do any traditional circus? Like in the tent with the animals?
Oh, yeah. I did. Yeah.
Did you ever get to do a pagoda on top of an elephant?
No, I'm still hoping for that to happen.
It will happen for you.
So far, I only performed right after the camel act in France, actually. It was in Lyon. And it was a little bit depressing because the camels got more applause than my act.
They always do.
Of course.
The animals always do.
Of course.
It's terrible. Try being on stage with like dogs.
It's true, right?
It's hopeless. It's totally hopeless. But the other thing about you is a lot of male contortionists also are these like very thin, very long people, and you're more muscular.
Are you calling me fat? Please.
No, I'm calling you big bones.
This interview is over right now.
No, but obviously, like, you're stacked.
Yeah,
we all look at you on Instagram.
I'm the most chubby contortionist there is. That's true.
So how do you balance like your chubbiness, which is actually like extreme musculation? Come on. How do you balance that with the flexibility? Do you find it gets in the way?
I notice it most of the time when I work out my legs. I have to be careful with my legs because since splits didn't come easy to me, I lose them quite easily as well. And when I work out my legs too hard, I really lose my splits.
Okay.
So that's why I barely work out my legs at all. That's why I'm kind of a bodybuilding flamingo with those really toothpick legs. Horrible.
That's why all your shots are from the waist up.
I know. But shh, don't tell anyone.
Oh, for sure. It's just between you and me. It's a secret.
And then the rest of my flexibility is basically really lower back,
okay.
Which is not affected by my musculation. And shoulders, I was never really flexible in shoulders. So I can put on really muscles on my shoulders and arms. It can't get worse with the flexibility because there's nothing to begin with.
There you go. That's true. I never see you in like the really open handstands or anything like that. You're mostly a backbender.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
it's mostly really back. Yeah, exactly.
So what, when you're putting together a number or an act, what is the process for you?
Good question. The hardest part is to find the right music because for me it feels like the music is the essence of the whole thing. It has to inspire me. It has to be something that I still like to hear over years because if you perform it regularly, you perform it 200 times a year and you still want to like your song. It has to have the right length. It has to have the right tempo, dramatic and everything. Takes ages sometimes to find the right song. And sometimes it just happens accidentally that you just fall over a song and you think like, ooh, wow, that's nice. I just keep that in mind. And maybe at some point I want to do something on that song. And that's basically how I get started. When I find a song, it gives me already ideas about movements. And then I might have already certain tricks in my head that I'm maybe working on right now already. And that I want to put in this routine, and then I find in the song parts, that could be nice for this move, and here I could do this dynamic move.
Yeah, nice.
So that's basically how it comes together. And in the end, I like to work with a choreographer. I like to get some outside eye, some outside help, who forces you also to do things that you wouldn't come up with yourself. Because my first acts, I all created myself, and they were okay, but they were basically always the same because it's just what I have to offer. And when I work with a choreographer, they always come up with new things and they have a different take on the movements that I can offer, which I really like.
How do you decide what new movements or what new tricks you're going to work on?
It depends a little bit also on the theme of the act. If I might create something that is supposed to fit in a certain show, sometimes you get offers where the show has a certain topic and they want to do your act in a certain way. It should be a certain character, or they want you to use special music. This already sets what kind of moves and tricks would fit there. Is it more dynamic? Is it more dramatic? Is it a very quiet routine? Is it like a dreamy piece? Whatever. Could be very cheesy. It could be a little freaky, whatever. All this already puts which tricks work well or which tricks might not be perfect for this routine.
This podcast is brought to you by The Artist Athlete. Did you know that The Artist Athlete is more than just a podcast? It's a growing online resource for students of the aerial arts to deepen their journey to badassery by accessing techniques approved by physical therapists and master coaches in the industry. Our current spotlight is on the fundamentals of aerial alignment, a practical manual for hanging upside down. This online manual is a step-by-step guide. It is complete with photos, videos, and exercises that you can implement immediately to help you gain the strength and awareness you need for an aerial practice that promotes shoulder health and longevity and good posture upright, so you don't walk around like a gorilla. But don't just take my word for it. Here's circus physical therapist Dr. Jen Crane of Circ Physio to tell you more.
The fundamentals of aerial alignment is an absolute must-have for every aerialist of every level. I can't even tell you how many shoulder injuries I treat that are a direct result of rushing past the basics in an attempt to get a trick too soon. In the manual, Shannon deconstructs the fundamentals, including the correct muscular engagement to safely arrive in these positions and the rationale for why it matters. Of course, in addition to all of these fabulous pearls of wisdom, the book is also ridiculously fun to read. It's been lovingly garnished with the Shannon humor we all know and love.
Thanks, Jen. Circ Physio is also featured in the book to give scientific insight into why it all works. Pick up your copy today by going to theartistathlete.com and clicking e-manuals. Listeners of the podcast can get a 10% discount by typing in the offer code PODCAST at checkout. Again, that's theartistathlete.com, offer code PODCAST. Now, back to the show.
So you're working on Mouthpiece right now,
Yeah.
the Marinelli. Are you working on that without a coach?
Yeah.
Entirely self-taught
Yes.
with it. Where did you get the Mouthpiece?
I had it fashioned actually for myself.
Okay.
I thought about how it should look like.
Yeah.
And then, I made a sketch and went with that to a professional welder who works with stainless steel. He always makes all my props. And, he made this thing. And then I just tried to make it work. And lucky me, it did.
Yeah, lucky you.
Lucky me.
Do you usually work with props? Because I've only seen one of your numbers, and it was like when we did Pabst Audience at the Wintergarten, 3 years ago or something now. Do you ever work with canes, or what kind of props do you like to work with?
No, I never worked with canes because I'm totally self-taught. I never got in touch with canes, so I'm really not trained on canes. When I do contortion acts, they're always on the floor. I used to work on tables.
Yeah.
I still have 2 contortion tables down in my basement somewhere hidden away because they're heavy and big and a pain in the ass to travel with.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the only prop I usually used for contortion. I never had canes or things like that.
Okay.
I enjoy a nice act on canes because it lifts the act a little bit. On the other hand, what I also like is when a contortion routine doesn't need anything, just the body. I like that too, because sometimes I see contortion as a extreme kind of dance, and then I like it that it comes without a prop.
Yeah.
It's so pure.
It's such an interesting art form too, because it really lends itself to like the extreme, like variete or really contemporary work. But also, like, it's so spellbinding and people are so amazed by it that you can put it in a tent, you can put it somewhere like this.
True.
And it works there too.
Yeah, it's true. And you don't even have to be a good contortionist to thrill the people.
Yeah.
I feel like contortionists sometimes have it easier than other disciplines. When I see, for instance, jugglers or tight wire people, they practice so much just for the basics.
Yeah.
And nobody will clap for a basic in juggling or a basic on a tight wire. Contortion, do a split, which is pretty much basic for any kind of circus performer. And people go crazy already. If you want people to clap, you just do a split. So for contortionists, it's sometimes easy to get the people clapping.
Yeah, it's true. As someone who worked as a very bad contortionist
for
a long time, yeah.
I had no idea.
I used to be able to like put my butt on my head and I was pretty flexible, but
Nice.
then I started doing straps and
it all went down.
but I should work on it more actually, because I still have a little bit of innate flexibility. So.
It's basically a nice way to balance out the muscle work from aerial.
Yeah.
So I like actually the combination of doing both.
Do you do any
It
aerials?
feels healthy. I did. For 9 years, I was in a duo trapeze act.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And for 8 years, I had a solo aerial hoop act.
Yeah, I could see you. It would be cool because you do hula hoops. So aerial hoop, it's like that nice kind of.
Yeah, I thought that too. On the other hand, what I didn't like when I saw myself in the air, I'm not the dynamic kind of guy. Mm-hmm. So I'm quite heavy and I'm really big and I'm flexible. So basically everything I do is very adagio. Mm-hmm. And to me, I really like when someone is in the air with a little tempo and really dynamic. I love watching that, and I don't have this to offer. That's why I didn't like myself so much in the air.
It's so great that you have that ability to evaluate your own strengths and weaknesses outside of it.
Yeah, true.
Where do you think that comes from?
I think circus makes it quite easy, doesn't it? Because it shows you right away, no, this you can't do. This is something you could maybe learn and that you're really good at. I think, that's what I like about circus.
Cool. So now that you're not 20 anymore, now that you're 25
plus.
next week, do you find how have you adjusted your flexibility training, or have you at all, your performing or anything, to aging 5 years?
It's interesting actually, because I feel more flexible now. I'm in my early 40s.
Really?
Yes, I am. I know you don't see this, but I am. And I'm more flexible than I was in my 20s. And I think it's because I know my body better and I know why I do all those exercises. When I remember back in the 20s, I warmed up quite long. I always needed to warm up maybe an hour if I wanted to perform. But I had not actually a clue why I did all those exercises. And now I'm a bit smarter about all my warm-up. I don't push, for instance, my lower back as much as I did when I was 20, because my lower back apparently is the flexible spot anyway. It doesn't need so much work. It gets rather tired when I work too much on my lower back. So now if I warm up, I focus more on the other spots. I focus on upper back. I focus on neck or on my hips. And that basically helps me much more. My lower back is not tired when I start performing. So it's without any pain. It feels good. It feels healthy. And the other body parts are warmed up and open and ready to go. So it feels like I just got smarter about my whole training and warm-up technique.
So now you work smarter.
Yes.
Not harder.
Not harder.
That's great.
Exactly.
And you're teaching now too. I saw at Artist Realm the other day.
Yeah, sometimes I teach. Exactly. I like to give privates.
And do you have your own since you're self-taught, there's no pedagogy there. So how do you go about evaluating a student and teaching them?
Yeah, it's true. I have only, of course, my kind of technique, the way I learned contortion. This is basically now how I teach my students as well. First, what I do is they warm up by themselves, because I feel warm up is a very personal thing and everybody has his own routine and knows what works best for him. So I let them warm up themselves. And then I watch how they do a bridge. They have to make a basic bridge for me so I can tell where are their weaknesses, where are their flexible spots. And then we work off that. And some of the students even come with requests. They come already and tell me, okay, I want to learn chest stands, or I want to work on my splits. I want to do a standing needle and standing splits and stuff. So we can focus also on the things that they ask for.
Nice.
It's fun. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's nice to see people grow. I love teaching.
Cool.
I did it once
too.
for children for 3 years. I had a group of little contortion children, and I followed them for 3 years. That was the best experience ever. It was so cool to see them grow. They were more talented than I ever was. And they did such a beautiful act in the very end. I was more nervous actually when they performed than when I performed myself.
Oh my God.
Yeah, proud contortion dad. I was standing backstage and was like almost tearing up.
Like going through all the motions with them, like, no, now
Exactly.
Sarah, what are you doing? Stop it.
Exactly.
That's so cute. What are they doing now?
One is a mother already. She's 30 now.
Okay.
And the small one, I don't know. She went to Switzerland to study.
Okay.
I haven't heard from her again.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we kind of lost touch, unfortunately.
It happens.
Yeah, true.
So what are you involved in now? Any projects? Anything exciting on the horizon?
Next thing, I go on tour with a show called Limbo.
Oh, really? You're doing Limbo again?
Yeah, I do
Cool.
Limbo again. Exactly. I did it already a couple of years ago and did the Australian tour with them.
Nice.
And now they bring it back to Europe, and we're going to do a tour through the Netherlands for 4 weeks. That starts in 10 days.
Cool.
That's my next project.
And it's the original one, right? Because I know they have the like
exactly.
revamped
and
one
I'm going to
as well.
do the Marinelli this time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hell yeah. That's
Hell
so
yeah,
awesome.
Exactly.
I love it.
My dentist still doesn't know that I do this.
Well, that's why I was asking, because I know when you do mouthpiece and you're hanging,
Yeah.
like Oscar does,
Yeah.
they recommend that you get like or the people who do it in the US, you have to bite down on like wax or something so they can fit your teeth. So
I used to have
No.
a mouthpiece like that when I
Okay.
was 25 because I started practicing it back then already. So I got my dentist to fashion a mouthpiece just like that. He really took my dentures somehow, and I didn't like it so much. It didn't work for me, and I didn't learn it as well. Anyway, Marinelli back then. And now, before I started training it, I did a little bit of research, and I checked mouthpieces from friends of mine from Mongolia, and they are very simple, actually. They're just leather, basically just a layer of leather sewn on a piece of wood or steel, and you just bite on that. And I worked also with a couple of Russians who did some similar Marinelli balance thing with the teeth. And they showed me their mouthpieces. And they were the same, just a steel core with a leather layer around. And you just bite on that. And that's what I'm doing right now as well. Works.
yeah, if it works,
It's
don't change
basically,
it.
it feels like for the teeth, it's the same pressure as when I'm lying on my chin. So it's nothing different here. The only thing that's really different and what I had get used to is the neck, because you balance it all with your neck and the neck is holding everything. So you just have to strengthen your neck before you can hold the whole position. But for the teeth, it feels fine.
What did you do to strengthen your neck?
I just practiced that trick.
Okay.
Yeah. First for just a few seconds
do it.
and then keep it longer and longer. And then your neck gets used to it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I see you on Instagram every day, and I don't know, maybe you have like an Instagram strategy. Some people do, but it seems like you're in the gym or you're like working like every day, going in and training.
Do
and, I don't know. Do you?
I should.
So where do you find, and maybe like 7-year-old Philip, I would love to ask this question too also, is like, where do you find the motivation or the discipline? You've been doing this for so long, and what do you think carries you?
I'm actually surprised about 7-year-old Philip's motivation as well, because he was totally into this.
Yeah.
He spent really every day bending and stretching in his room. I don't think I had the strength now. I enjoy a break once in a while as well now. But now what I like is really to work for projects and even if I don't have a contract that I have to work for, that I put my own projects, like the Marinelli, for instance. When I started last year with the Marinelli, it was just for my own ego. I didn't even plan to put it on stage. It was rather more like, I want to check this off my list. This is one trick I was always dreaming about, and I just want to try if I can get that. And if I don't, it's fine, but I at least want to have tried it. Same goes for the triple fold, for instance. At some point in my career, I would just like to try if it's possible for me to do a triple fold, even if it's just for one nice photo. And so I need these projects, personal projects, to keep me going.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Goals.
Exactly.
It's good.
Also, something I like about circus, there's always a way to find your personal goal. There's no age too old. You can always still find a new goal. And even if you're doing the prop that you're working with for ages, there's still things you can discover on your old prop to find new goals. That's what I really, really like about circus. It's like endless possibilities.
Yeah, it's infinite.
Yeah, exactly. And you can find the things that suit your body. So it doesn't have to ruin your health and your body. You just find the things that work well for your physique and for your body. It's not like in dance. For instance, in dance, I find it rather hard because every dancer has to fulfill what the choreographer creates. And if you don't do this, there are hundreds who can do exactly the same thing. Circus is a little bit more individual. They ask you to do your act. You create your act. And how you create the act is totally up to you. You can do this with an incredibly high-level technique. You can also do it with a nice character. You can do it with a beautiful choreography. It's totally up to you. In the end, it has to be entertaining. That's all that matters. And if you find a way that's entertaining, that doesn't ruin your body, then you can grow 100 years old and still performing.
That's so great.
That's what we want to go.
Yes, 100.
100.
And then you don't even need character or anything because you're the 100-year-old contortionist. It works perfectly. How cool is that? What advice would you give 7-year-old Philipp?
Ooh.
Starting out. Or maybe, I don't know. So I developed this question because I started when I was older. I was 22. I'd had some dance and physical theater and was kind of always a mover. But a lot of people I find, especially in the US, it's a hard thing to break into, and it's a hard circus is a kind of a tricky animal to understand unless you've grown up in it.
True.
So I always wished that I had had a bunch of professionals who could tell me what they did or what advice they would have.
This is what I wish for 7-year-old Philipp as well, that he had maybe 1 or 2 coaches in certain areas. So for instance, hand balancing, I'm fine now with my hand balance. That's totally all right. But I probably did many mistakes on the way there. So if you have a good coach who could tell you the right technique from the very beginning, you save a lot of time and you probably don't make many mistakes there. Or I would recommend little Philipp to go to dance classes. This is something I really feel I'm missing in my career. I'm not a skilled dancer. I'm not a proper mover like others are. If you throw a new choreography on me, it takes a while for me to learn. And I'm very specialized on what I do. I can do hula hoops and contortion. That's basically it. Nothing more. And in circus, you should be more open. It helps when
luckily you do it very well. So
I can
you
hide
get away with
my flaws. But in every show nowadays, you are forced to dance in openings or final scenes and wherever you have to dance. And we all know those acrobats who are definitely forced to dance and barely can make it happen.
There's always that one, no offense to them, but there's always that one Russian porter who's
one Russian porter, exactly. I feel so sorry for them.
I know.
It's terrible.
Just let them come on for the bow. What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Don't force them to do this damn step.
Okay, so now the fun questions.
Oh, yes,
Not
please.
that those weren't fun, but...
Oh, so boring.
Philipp, when you were 7, how did you train your split? No, let's get down to it.
Okay.
Would you rather live forever or die tomorrow?
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'd rather die tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's smart.
Living forever sounds horrible. Please, no. Oh, God, no.
So what would you
Especially
do?
since I manage the Marinelli now. Now I can die in peace.
Oh my God, yeah, you can die.
Ready, I'm done.
It's done. If you only had 24 hours left to live, what would you do?
Oh, certainly no Marinelli anymore. 24 hours. I probably would spend all those 24 hours in any kind of zoo. I'm a zoo addict.
Really?
I love zoos, yes. I have a year pass for both zoos here in Berlin.
Yeah?
And whenever I have a chance, I spend all my time there.
Oh my gosh.
That's probably I'm gonna spend my last 24 hours. Yeah. And in the dying hour, I would jump in a bear cage.
That's how you would go.
That's it.
He was mauled by a bear.
Exactly.
And he looked great.
He was delicious.
So tender. What do you eat for breakfast every morning?
I used to have oatmeal with blueberries and banana every morning. Just this week I changed because, yeah, I know.
Whoa.
Yeah, every once in a while, every 40 years I change my meal routine. And just this week I decided, okay, I changed to this 8 hours a day. I can eat whatever I want, and 16 hours I don't eat anything. And but my eating window starts at 12 at noon. So from noon to 8 o'clock p.m. I can eat whatever I want. Okay. Which kills breakfast right now. There's no breakfast anymore, no oatmeal.
Even when you're on show days, you do it this way?
I hadn't have show days yet. Okay. I will find out. I think I have to change. My idea is that I put it a little earlier, this time window, that I might start at 9 having a breakfast. Okay. And then I can eat until 5, which is fine because shortly before the show starts, I shouldn't eat anyway. So between 9 and 5 sounds like doable.
Totally doable. Yeah. And then what is your favorite book?
Oh dear, you get me on the wrong foot. I hate
nobody on this show reads. Nobody on this show
reads. That's a big thing my parents still complain about. My whole family loves reading. We are really a literature family. And I shouldn't say it here, but I studied even literature and I hate to read. I really don't like reading. Sorry.
That's okay. You don't have to apologize to me. Apologize to your doctor father.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
This was an awesome interview.
It was fun.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the national treasures of Germany, Philipp Tigris. He had so much to share in this interview. Here are a few points that stuck out for me. Philipp said that starting from the age of 7, he trained alone in his room and worked on his craft. But at the end of the episode, he had an interesting piece of advice. Let's listen in.
This is what I wish for 7-year-old Philipp as well, that he had maybe 1 or 2 coaches in certain areas. So for instance, hand balancing. I'm fine now with my hand balance. That's totally all right. But I probably did many mistakes on the way there. Mm-hmm. So if you have a good coach who could tell you the right technique from the very beginning, you save a lot of time and you probably don't make many mistakes there.
There's this weird pride I hear from people sometimes who are self-taught that they figured out certain tricks on their own or they got all of their information from Instagram. But usually, and I guess not surprisingly, these people don't have the best technique and aren't necessarily the most fun to watch. Not to mention in regards to aerial work, being self-taught can be very unsafe. When coaches, myself included, put posts on Instagram, what we're showing might be very different than what you need in your own practice. Not to mention, there's no real test you have to take to call yourself a circus coach on Instagram or to just throw out information, quote unquote information. So what's out there may not necessarily be correct. Not just for you, it may be wrong for everyone. Now, Philipp is a beautiful mover and an artist, but even he admits that he got to where he is through years of trial and error, and could have saved a lot of pain and suffering if he could have worked with a coach. Yes, it is more expensive than figuring things out on your own. Sometimes you have to travel, so it's inconvenient as well. And circus knowledge is highly specialized, so it's priced as such. However, you will save yourself a ton of time, and it's way better for your body to find a good qualified coach in your discipline. And use Instagram or other resources as supplemental material to your training program. I also really liked the discussion we briefly touched on about the history of circus in the context of the variety scene in Germany. One of the many reasons I created this podcast was to display the diversity of circus as an art form. And I love that we got this little taste of this type of circus with Philipp. He mentioned a kind of rebirth of variety after the fall of the Berlin Wall. This tradition of cabaret and variety theater in Germany is just one of the many avenues through which a circus artist could find employment. When I was doing the professional training program at NECA, I really only knew two styles of circus. There's traditional circus, which is the animals and the rhinestones and what people commonly think of when they think of circus. And then there was the style that I then kind of just called contemporary circus, which now I think of more as a Montreal style. It's the acrobats that wear black booty shorts and black bras and do super moody acts to the sounds of their own breathing. I'm not trying to sound shady here. They're usually incredibly talented, but that's a certain aesthetic that you see. And then, of course, there's Cirque du Soleil, which is arguably its own style altogether. But there are also thousands of companies and shows and troupes all over the world that operate under their own histories within circus and their own conventions. So it was really cool to have Philipp kind of give us a glimpse into a different kind of circus. Also, I highly recommend watching the movie musical Cabaret with Liza Minnelli. So good. I need to rewatch that. I loved it when Philipp said that he's more flexible now than he was in his 20s. And he's 43 now, working on the Marinelli Bend. If you don't know what that is, I'll try to explain it. It's when a contortionist bends backwards and bites down onto a mouthpiece that's attached to a stick. Then they lift their feet off the floor and their hands, so they're basically balancing on this mouthpiece. It was named after H.B. Marinelli, who was also a male contortionist, born in Germany, but an Italian circus family. I'll include some pictures in the show notes. Anyway, Philipp says that now he's much more mindful and appreciative of the exercises he does. And this ability to critically think about his training allows him to work smarter, not harder, on his craft. Age is not a barrier for him, and it shouldn't be for anyone. And it's actually the wisdom that comes from age that allows him to continue to practice and master each goal he set for himself. And that's all I have for you guys this week. If you liked the episode, please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. That's how everyone else knows it's an awesome podcast. And make sure to tell all your friends, fans, and enemies. I'd like to give a shout out to Ryan Murray, who's an acrobat on Cirque du Soleil show Curios. And he messaged me the other day telling me he was binge listening to the podcast while he was putting on his makeup before a show. So shout out to Ryan. If you want to get in touch with me, you can find me on the World Wide Web at theartistathlete.com. I'm very active on the gram at _artist_athlete, or you can join the Facebook group Friends of the Artist Athlete Podcast. Coming up next week on the show, I'm going to be interviewing Fred Deb, one of the originators of aerial silks. So listen in for that. It's going to be a really great show.